Dolly, Alex. Hey, congratulations on your new film, Ghostlight.
Thank you
Thank you
so
so
much.
much. This is awesome.
No, it is. I think your film is actually awesome, right? Because I was teary-eyed throughout the entire film. But we have to hear it as where the original idea came from.
Yeah, I think probably, I mean, you've talked about how I think I am absorbing a lot all the time, and then my brain does a little blender action and then spits it back out in the form of a story because it came from a lot of different places. I was thinking about the hero's journey from a structure point of view. I had seen a trailer for Romeo and Juliet from the National Theatre of London. Um, there was the story about the teenage girl who had pressured her boyfriend via text to die by suicide, and that was spinning around in my head.
I Love You No Die, I think it was.
Oh, is that the doc about
I think
it?
it was the doc,
Which I
yeah.
never saw, but I
Right,
just
yeah.
like read articles
Yeah,
about
yeah.
it. And also I come from heavy theater background of doing community theater my entire childhood. So I think all of those things were like a little tornado, and then the thing that was left behind was this story.
Wow. Was it difficult to interweave, Romeo and Juliet into a family drama at the same time? I mean, it is so fascinating how it ran parallel with each other.
The hardest part was figuring out how parallel they should be, how mirrored they should be. Because there was a second when I was thinking, do we need to spend more time on Christine's family? Do we need to spend more time with the warring Capulets and Montagues, between the two families? But ultimately, figuring out how much is useful for Dan's journey and everything else to be set aside. So the calibration of that through workshop, I think, was important.
Yeah.
Now, as directors, like I said, I was teary-eyed, but it was basically both in the case of like, you could feel for the characters, and there's also the happy and joyous tears at the same time. How did you wanted to approach to capture those emotions throughout this entire film?
I mean, what we do is when we work, well, we have an incredible script at the baseline, and that's a good jumping off point for anything that's going to feel honest. I think what you're responding to is the fact that it feels earned or real or honest in some way. But the biggest thing is that we really lean on our actors, and we rely on them not to judge themselves, not to judge each other. And so when they're living through these words, they're doing so in a way that I think is empathizing and creates complexity in a way that, like, if Christine was the villain of the story or Dan was the anti-hero, these archetypes aren't very useful to us. And I don't think you get the same sort of messy recognition that you're describing in that case.
So, when you're directing your actors, especially for a film that is so meta in its own way, do you approach it like a film or do you approach it like a theater?
I mean, a little of both. I think that like it's sort of constantly blurring the lines because it is so much about theater. Like the final production, I would block it like you block a play,
Yeah.
but then we would come in tighter for the really cinematic, deeply emotional moments. And so it was both. It was sort of, things that could exist in a theatrical world when it needed to, but then also really making sure that it translates to film language too.
Yeah. It's actually really fun to think about because so Kelly would, like, for instance, go out in the parking lot and like block the fight scene with Tommy and Katherine, and Tommy's a fight choreographer and right, I
Is
think, or fight captain or something.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's why he like volunteered to be present for all of those sort of
Oh.
things. But then you come back in, and in theater you're dialing it in, dialing it in, dialing it in, so that your like silhouettes are right, and so that every picture is kind of complementary. But for us, we could shoot one wide and know that we were going to get in tight and like kind of make everything work together. But it's also, they're a company of amateur performers, and so you really get to try. It's like you get to try a million things like in film, and you get to commit to what's there like in theater. um
Well said. Well said. Well, Alex, Kelly, thank you very much for this conversation about Ghostlight. I am so recommending a lot of people to
Yeah.
watch this film. So thank you
Thank
very much.
you.
Thank you
Really
for talking to
appreciate
us
it.
about it too.